Hello, hello, and welcome back. I'm Brian, and you're watching Frugal Footprint. And in this video series, we are building a patio furniture storage bin, also known as a deck box or just an outdoor storage bin. We have everything cut out, assembled, primed, painted, sealed. It looks great. And this is the last video in the series. We're going to be just finishing it up, installing the hardware, the hinges, the doors, the lid, all of that. Step one is that I'm going to be putting some weather stripping along the top edge and a few other places. This stuff I've used before. Definitely, will seal up the edge. The sticky part doesn't actually stay stuck all that well, so I'm actually going to use a stapler and staple it down. But it's pretty straightforward. Just going to run it along the top edge first, and then we'll be installing the lid. A few steps in this process, and I'll be here with you the entire way. And if you want to follow along at home and build one of these yourself, be sure to go to frugalfootprint.com and get your copy of the design. Let's get to it. Weather stripping installed. Again, I just put a staple here, 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 few along the back, few along the other side. Next up, we're going to put our lid on, get it nice and centered, and then we'll do the hinges along the back. All right, I have this nice and centered on here. There's 2 1/4 inch overhang on the short ends, and then on the back it's a 2 1/2 inch overhang, and on the front also going to be 2 1/2 once we have the doors on here, which adds an extra 1/2 inch here, so it's 3 at the moment, 3 inches overhang at the moment, which will become 2 1/2 to match the 2 1/2 on the back once we put that door on there. Hopefully that makes sense. Essentially, we just want it centered all the way around, and then we're going to install 3 hinges along the back. Before I get started, these are the hinges. I got them on Amazon. I can link it below. The thing to keep in mind is these are the screws that came with it, and when we install this, the screw is actually longer than this is deep, and we're going to go up through, and this is going to stick out. Double check that the screws that came with your hinges will work for the project. I do have this other set of screws here. Now this is actually a 1/2 inch screw. It's going to do the same thing, but now you can see that it's actually flush here, and it's not going to stick through the top. So the ones going into the bin itself, we're going to line it up with the 2x4s. So the screws that are longer than a 1/2 inch is actually pretty good, because that's going to give it something to anchor against. But going up into it this way, make sure that they are 1/2 inch. Slightly shorter then. So this is a bottom up view. The lid is up here. This is the ground. Here's my hinge. I'm going to start with the middle one. I'm pulling down on the lid nice and tight. The lid did get a little warped. It's just a sheet of plywood, but the hinges are going to help cinch down the back end, and then there's a fix for the front as well that I'll show you coming up real soon here. We have the hinge in the middle, the hinges on both sides. So for the ones on the end here, it's about 1.5 inches from the edge here, and we're on to the next step. Check it out. Okay, so I know I promised in an earlier video that we were done cutting everything out, but this is something that needed to be saved until this step. This board, it's 2x2, is gonna end up on the underside of here. It's gonna help keep the lid from warping, and it's also going to be something for the doors to butt up against on the top side when it closes. The reason I saved it for this step is I knew I didn't want a ton of wiggle room on this one. So the lid, now that we have it anchored down with those hinges in the back, I've measured between this 2x4 and this 2x4 between the frame, and it's 57 inches. And what I've done is measured back where I want it up on the top and set it back. And then I've taken a Sharpie and just made dots along the top where the screws are gonna go. So now I can take this board, put it under, and screw down into it, and then we'll just paint over those screws and paint this board as well, and that's going to basically create like a door stop on the top side for those doors. And I'll be using these 1 1/4 inch screws again. And what I'm gonna do here is actually just start all of these screws, so that way it's really easy, because I only have 2 hands here. You're gonna be doing a lot of this otherwise. this is perfectly flush. And the doors are gonna close up against this. I'm also gonna put weather stripping all along this. And when this opens, that goes with it. And see here, I wanted this to be, you know, a really tight gap on both sides, which is why I waited till now, because if I screwed this down before we put the lid on, there's a really good chance that this wasn't gonna line up so perfectly. All right, on to the next step. Check it out. I just installed both of these hinges. They are supposed to be soft close. You still have to kind of guide it down. They're made for 40 pounds of capacity, which should work for this. But more than anything, I just wanted something that would keep the lid open once you open it. Also, they were a bit of a pain to install. I got them on Amazon. I'll link it below. Would I recommend them? Maybe, maybe not. There's tons of options out there. Just the instructions weren't great. Some assembly required. I don't know, take it or leave it. But they'll work for my needs, and there you have it. So now it's time to install the doors. Before that, I did just install more of this weather strip, just all along the bottom edge, the side, the top, and the far edge there. It's pretty much anywhere that the door is gonna close. And I wanted to do that first so that way we can account for it, instead of installing the doors really tight up against the wood and then putting the weather stripping in. They probably wouldn't close all the way. So you wanna have account for that air gap ahead of time. We're ready to install the doors. First thing you wanna have handy is something to shim the door, so that way the door doesn't sit flat upon this, because once we install the hinges, we'll take this out, and then there's that room, so that way the door can actually swing open and close. I mean, this is just a 1/8 piece of under laminate that I had from a different project, but you could really use anything or actually go buy a shim, but this will work just fine. And next I want to set the door in place. The part with the large overhang is on the bottom, and then this is the inside. The part with the shorter overhang goes here where the hinges would be. So this sets here, and then I'm got these at Home Depot, I can link it below. So the reason I want to use a Tee hinge is because, hard to explain, but basically if you use a regular hinge, the screws will go through the door or through the side right into the opposite piece, and they won't be able to open. So this is another one of those things where you want to make sure that the screws that overlap don't go actually all the way through. Now, the ones that are further back are gonna go into the side and into the frame, and that's fine. I'll show you what I mean. So here you can see, this is the screw that goes in this part of the hinge up here. It's gonna go all the way through and into this bit here, which is the side, and that would keep the door from opening. So we need to make sure the screws are short enough as they get closer to the hinge, but then these ones can actually be longer, but if we go through here, then that's actually going to go into the side of the door. So shorter towards the hinge, longer as you go out away from the hinge. So I've measured down 4 inches. I just think it looks nice there. We'll go up 4 inches from the bottom. 1 down, 3 to go. Next up is the door latch and door handles. There's the latch, it's another Amazon purchase, same with the handles. I can link it below. So what I've done is kind of measured down when I'm standing where my hand hits, you know, kind of where it's handy, where the handles might be convenient for me. That ends up being 10 inches down from the top for the latch, and then the handle's right above that. Best way to do this, hold it where you want it to be. I took a Sharpie, made some dots. That way you aren't trying to deal with 2 pieces and all the screws. You just do 1 at a time. Perfect, onto the handles. Okay, so disclaimer, not the greatest screws that came with this handle. The bottom one's stripped out already, but you know, it's still firmly attached, and if it gets too loose, I guess I'll deal with it and put on new screws later. So I just have these 2 inches from the center and down about 1 3/4 inches. It works! One last step, we're gonna put handles on either side, and then I will be leveling out the spot and moving it into place. We're almost there. Okay, so now we're on the side, and this is the last step of the project. I got these handles, again, an Amazon purchase. I don't know if I can stand by it or not, but I'll link it below, and we'll see how it stands the test of time. Again, the screws seem like they're maybe a little short. We have, remember, that 2x4 right here on the inside. So I do actually have this screw that's about 3/4 of an inch. It'll go through there and into the 2x4. So that way we can actually get some leverage, and these handles hopefully won't just rip right off when we go to move it. But the idea is you want it low enough so that way, you know, when you stand up after you've grabbed it, it raises off the ground a little bit so you aren't kind of using your shoulders or your back. So low enough down, and then I have them spaced, you know, about shoulders width apart, so that way it's really easy for one person on either side to get two hands on this thing. It's pretty heavy. You can see on the corner here, this is actually bending up a little bit, but once it's bent to the max, it's actually going to work just fine, I think. So we have, that'll work. Look at that, it's complete. Looks great. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. So it took me about 3 full days to cut everything out, get it all painted, sealed, assembled, everything put together. And the final bill rang in just around $250. Obviously that's gonna be different depending on when in time you build this, how much lumber costs, if you can find the same hardware at the same price, etc., etc. But I think this is gonna be perfect for what we had in mind. All right, well, thanks for joining me on this custom build of our patio furniture storage bin slash deck box slash outdoor storage bin. Whatever you want to call it is fine by me. Be sure to head over to frugalfootprint.com to get a copy of the design so you can build one of these yourself. And be sure to hit the like button as well. Comment below, let me know what you think of it, and subscribe. Subscribe for more. We have a lot of good content coming your way, and I'm excited to share more. Until then, take care. We'll see you on the next video.